All right, welcome back, everybody. Now, to sign up for my free newsletter called Amato for Liberty, simply go to the One America News website at oann.com and click on the Rick Amato Show fan page. You can sign up for free right there to get my newsletter. It comes out to you by email twice a week. Stay up to date on what's happening here on the show, on the network, and get tons of behind-the-scenes information. By the way, for those of you who have signed up, a newsletter issue went out this morning, so check your inboxes. All right, as we all know, ISIS is moving forward in Syria, Turkey, Iraq. Baghdad is on the they're on the doorstep of Baghdad. U.S.-led airstrikes simply are not working. ISIS appears to be emboldened. Joining me this time to comment on this is national security expert, former U.S. Senator from the state of Florida, as well as the principal at the LeMieux Center for Public Policy, is George LeMieux. Mr. LeMieux, welcome to the show.
Nice to be with you, Rick.
All right, so let's get right to the matter. This appears to be a piecemeal war. Experts have said all along that airstrikes, while strategic, are never decisive. Should the U.S. put U.S. troops on the ground in the battle against ISIS, and should they do it now?
Well, Rick, I think that we ultimately will put troops on the ground. There are some already there as advisors and special forces. But what we're hearing from Iraq and what we're hearing from Syria is that these airstrikes alone aren't working. Despite the good efforts, there were about 8 airstrikes in Syria and the city and around Kobani yesterday and this morning. That's a border city that ISIS has taken 35% of. The problem now is that we can't determine which targets to hit because the Kurdish fighters and the ISIS fighters are fighting street to street, and the airstrikes are just not that precise, nor is there somebody on the ground that can target those folks and say, now it's time for you to shoot at this particular block of people. So you need the ground troops, you need the forces on the ground, and ISIS is on the march, not just in Kobani, which, like I said, is fighting sort of street to street, and it looks right now that we may lose that important city, but in Iraq, also right near Baghdad at the airport, just 15 miles from the city, there's been important gains by ISIS. We're trying to use helicopters there to be able to shoot back at these folks, but that's not seeming to work as well as if we had some ground troops. And in the Anbar province as well, ISIS has taken 80% of that province, and Iraqi military is abandoning key defensive positions. So you can't fight a war with just one element of force. The president should never have taken all of these options off the table by saying that he was only going to use airstrikes. And we're in a situation where ISIS may be winning the war, not losing it.
And why even signal to your opponent what your strategy is going to be?
Well, it makes no sense to do that, Rick. You should never signal to your opponent what you're going to do. You should never let them know your intentions. The goal of any military confrontation is to win. And it's not about political correctness. It's not about abiding by campaign promises of getting out of Iraq. It's about winning. If we're going to fight these folks, if we think there's a clear and present danger, which is what the president has articulated, then use the force that's ready. It's not necessarily safer just to use Air Force. If we don't take positions back, these folks might start shooting at our helicopters and shooting at our fighter planes. So we still are putting Americans in harm's way. If we're going to commit, let's commit in a way that we can win.
All right. So, first of all, I agree with you. Now, if Kobani falls, it's been said that the atrocities, the death count after that will be unlike anything we have seen. You agree with that?
Well, it'll be horrible, and the problem is, Rick, is that in Kobani now it's only the weak and those who didn't have the means to flee. Those who had the means to flee and those who were strong did flee, so it will be the most vulnerable that are persecuted by ISIS. They will make an example out of them. They will tout this as a big victory. So let's hope that that does not happen. Let's hope that the Kurds can hold them off. But right now, it doesn't look very promising.
Wow. All right, final question, George LeMieux. When might we expect to see the president finally make that decision to put troops on the ground?
Unfortunately, it's going to happen if there continues to be losses in Iraq and in Syria. If they take the airport in Iraq, if they attain another big victory, if they take Kobani in Syria, if there's some other level of atrocity, for example, to the weak and disaffected who remain in Kobani, if they were to take the city, that's going to raise public ire. That's going to raise congressional pressure. And at some point, the president, having committed to us to this, has committed us to be successful. And I think the pressure may bear upon him that he's going to have to put in some ground troops.
George LeMieux, national security expert, former U.S. Senator from the state of Florida. Thank you for joining us from Fort Lauderdale. Americans on edge over Ebola. That is next. But first, Jimmy Kimmel takes to the streets of Los Angeles to ask folks, what is a GMO? Stay with me. You're watching The Rick Amato Show on One American News.
If you are eating whole foods, you want to eat what you're eating. You know what I mean? You want to eat what you see. And so, and you're avoiding processed food, but when the whole food is somehow contaminated, that's kind of making it a moot point.
What does GMO stand for?
Genetically manufactured. Oh.
What is a GMO?
General modified ingredient, right?
What is a GMO?
It's something modified.
Do you try to avoid GMOs?
Sometimes. Not a whole lot, but, I try.
What is a GMO?
I don't know. I swear. I was just going along with it. I don't know what GMO is.
What is a GMO?
I don't know. I know it's like some corn bad stuff, right? I know it's bad, but to be completely honest with you, I have no idea.
What is a GMO?
I don't know, so I really don't care. It doesn't affect me. I'm not sick. I'm fine.